Nice. First turn.
To it, Cody. If he's removed from the shop, is that mean he wins?
Who gets the victory point if he gets removed in the tournament? There we go.
Yeah, I get the victory.
Because I'm here. Whenever feature comes into play,
Hot.
come dag son.
Don't worry, guys. There probably won't be sound on most of these clips. There'll be music.
He's telling us this now. He's telling us this now, and later he's just gonna put all the sound in.
No, I'm gonna add my voiceover over all the stuff you guys are saying. So be like, I'm my sorry. Cody, are you having fun yet?
No.
He's reading Chain Stasis.
And it's terrifying.
Let me hear you say.
It's retarded. Dude. You don't want to read it.
What is chain stasis? You have no maximum hit size. Here we go, sir.
Just the quickening, my car.
Why does every card to me look like the Abyss? Why can't it ever look like Nether?
Even though I'm 2-0.
I think you got the sentences like backwards within the. Or you got the.
Lord of the Undead and Zombie Apocalypse. Whatever happens in this game,
Some creature goes to your hand.
No, if you play in the last round, depends on what happens you're on this game.
Should have taken the video when there was like a million counters on my soul here. This is the wrong time to film because there's nothing on the table because Child just blew up.
Just for highlights.
He does have to sacrifice.
Win totals?
I'm Cody Starter, and this is my childhood lore. I use it to blow up all the things. Alright, so apparently since this deck just wrecked face for an entire tournament, I gotta teach you guys how to run a 5-color commander. We're rocking Child of Alara, both for my love of blowing things up, and because of one word, inevitability. It's EDH, you blow everything up every turn anyway. Wrath effects are king, you want more. So Child hits the graveyard, blows up everything. The downside is you've got 5 colors and you have to find a way to keep recurring it. So really the biggest problem is deciding what to put in the deck because you can run anything. So starting off with the mana base, obviously you want anything that can tap for 5 colors. I had Grand Coliseum for a while, but it comes in tapped, ended up being really slow. Got Forest and Plains for Knight of the Reliquary, handful of basics so that I can fetch up anything when I need it, and then all the duels, all the shocks that you can get your hands on. It's essentially a junk reanimator deck with splashes of red and blue for really nasty haymakers in the late game, but we'll get to that. So early on, obviously you want to dig stuff out. Soul Rings is just a given. Mana Ramp is good. Solemn he's a color fixer, it's why you run all the basics. And then I've got, we're actually crappy fetches because they come in tapped, but the Verge gets 2 pieces of land, and Sun Titan brings them back, so you don't really care. Like, they'll fetch everything up. And they still hit land types. X-Map gets everything. Knight of the Reliquary should be a staple in every 5-color deck because it gets everything, including the utility lands, because it just says search for a land card. After all the mana fixing, you drop the Wake, doubles your mana, gives all your creatures.
How much are these active dollar?
Gives all your creatures +1/+1, but the double mana is why you really want it. Once this is on the table, if they don't answer it, they're probably not going to be able to stop you. It's that word again, inevitability. Fist of Suns is really funny with Child of Alara because you can Wooburg Child out of the command zone without paying commander tax. And then we have an intense removal suite. ETB creatures are really good in this deck because it reanimates. Angel of Despair blows up anything. Luminant Primordial Swords is something off of everybody's field. There's a Wrath of God just on the off chance I can't get Child out and sack it. And then the ultimate emergency button, Razia's Purification. This is either I can't stop what's happening on the board, or I want to win right now, so we all sack down to 3 permanents. And odds are pretty good the 3 I keep are going to be stronger than whatever it is that you're keeping. You'd be surprised how many people just keep 3 lands. Legacy Weapon, repeated removal. They counter it, it shuffles into your deck. They blow it up, it shuffles into your deck. If they try to exile it, you can sack it to something to shuffle it into your deck. And it's just 5 mana to exile a permanent all the time, which is expensive, but the fact that you can do it at instant speed and they can't stop it from happening, I think it's more than worth it. One of the big haymakers is Violent Ultimatum, blows up 3 permanents. Spine blows up a permanent. It's expensive, but when Child blows up everything, this goes back to my hand, so I can just keep doing it. And then premium cheap removal, Swords and Path are always good. You definitely want to take Exile over Destroy. Maelstrom Pulse is nice because it's versatile. So is Vindicate, really nice. Bant Charm is one of my favorite ways to deal with commanders. Anything that's really annoying, I can just throw it onto the bottom of their library. I've never used it to destroy artifacts because it's easier just to blow up Child. But I've found myself countering all sorts of instants with this. Somebody will try to stop a Fate's Reward or something, and I'll have to just drop this and say, no, use the Dispel mode. Dust to Dust is good. A lot of people play at Darksteel Forge around here. Being able to exile 2 artifacts for 3 mana is, like, I wish it wasn't sorcery speed, but it's still really nice to just shut off combo decks. More exile. This isn't aggressively costed. It's not mana efficient at all, but I still like it because it's an unconditional exile a creature. I don't know, it's probably going to end up getting replaced with something, but for the time being, Unmake is pretty good. Duplicant is really good. Especially Revelark brings it back. I mean, you can reanimate it, exile more things. You can sack it, reanimate it, exile more things. I wish I had a way to blink it in here, but that's another deck entirely. So, like I said earlier, one of the keys to Child of Alara is that it gives you a board wipe whenever you want it. She hits the graveyard, you destroy all non-land permanents. That's planar cleansing, and they can't be regenerated. And the fact that she has trample just makes it absolutely retarded, because you just keep blowing up everything, get Child back, and you'll get them with commander damage eventually. So you need a lot of ways to kill her. You need sack outlets. Disciple of Bolus and the Menace Fall are my 2 favorites, because they fill your hand up again and you gain life. You sit down at a table with this deck, people are just going to start beating on you right away because they know what it's going to do. So being able to gain life off of sacking Child and wiping the board and drawing cards all in one fell swoop is really nice. And then you have instant speed sack outlets are the best way to go. You get a High Market and Grim Backwoods. High Market's great because you don't have to pay anything for it. The Backwoods is 4 mana and you get to draw a card off of it, but you don't really care because that's not why you're using it. Thespian Stage can be either one of these, preferably the High Market, but in a pinch, I'll take the Backwoods if I have to. But having the instant speed sack just sitting there is really nice, because you can blow the board up whenever you want to. Problem with the sack lands is you'll pop Child, and somebody will exile her in response, or bounce to your hand or something, and you don't get the ability, which is why I have Phyrexian Altar and Fallen Angel, both of which give me an instant speed sacrifice a creature as part of the cost, not the effect. So I can just do it again on top of the stack, and they can't stop it from happening. So since I'm blowing up all of my stuff all the time, I need to have a lot of ways to get it back. This is where this deck gets disgusting, because it has a lot of ways to get things back. Corpse Dance is really cool because you bring the top creature card from your graveyard into play. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be Child of Alara. It has haste, and it gets exiled at the end of the turn. So essentially what you do is you pull Child off the top of your graveyard, hit somebody with her, usually with Kessig Wolfrun for more damage, and then just sacrifice her to something. It has buyback too, so you can keep reusing it. Animate Dead. Let's see, where's the others? Necromancy, and to a lesser extent False Demise and Unhallowed Pact. All more or less do the same thing. Reanimate, Animate Dead, and Necromancy all pull creatures out of the yard straight to the battlefield. To reanimate, you end up paying life for it, which makes it sort of a premium, but you don't care because the value you're getting out of it, it's only 1 mana. Animate Dead and Necromancy are really nice though because they're both enchantments. Sun Titan can recur these, and Sun Titan is sort of the core engine of this deck. There's so much stuff that he brings back for value. But this just pulls a creature out of the graveyard, onto the battlefield. Necromancy, you can even do it instant speed if you're really desperate for a blocker. The number of times that I've had to reanimate Avacyn or Child or anything, it's ridiculous, and the value that you get out of it, being able to bring it back with Sun Titan. Other things that go really well with Sun Titan: False Demise and Unhallowed Pact. They both do essentially the same thing. The creature dies, comes back to the battlefield under your control. If you have Sun Titan enchanted with either of these, they can't get rid of him because Sun Titan will die. This will trigger, bring back the Sun Titan, his ability triggers, and brings back whichever one of these you have on him. Even works with board wipes like Child of Alara. Gift of Immortality is kind of the same thing. It's an Unhallowed Pact with a Sun Titan built in, sort of. It comes in at the end step, brings the creature back right away. The gift doesn't come back until the end step, so they can stop it from coming back because it has to target the creature that it brought back. But then you're forcing them to use 2 wraths. You're essentially getting a 2-for-1 out of it. Unless, of course, they're not using wraths. But spot removal doesn't work well against me. Got ways around that. Now, as far as getting things back out of the graveyard, Obsidat's Aid. 5 mana, it's exceptionally expensive, but it reanimates any permanent. I've used it to get fetch lands every once in a while for value, but this will bring back like Nicol Bolas if you need to. Got Grim Harvest to get creatures back out of the yard to my hand. Ewit to get anything back. Eternal Witness is just value. They'd also note the mana cost. It's only 3. Sun Titan brings it back. Grim Harvest is nice because it has Recover and you can keep recycling it. And we have a Darker Valkyrie. It should be in any deck that has access to white. It's nice to have a 4/5 flyer, but when something dies, you can tap this and just get it. It comes straight back to the battlefield under your control. I've used it to bring Child back immediately after blowing up Child. Somebody's got a really annoying creature or something that I kind of want. I'll use this to get it. I took somebody's Prophet of Krufix once, gave all my creature cards flash, and it was ridiculous because I could just keep bringing Child in from the command zone anytime and just always have a board wipe on. Faith's Reward is sort of a win condition, almost a bit of emergency backup. It kind of does everything in here. If I have the mana up and I can blow up Child and wipe the board and then Faith's Reward a significant board state back onto the field, people usually can't recover fast enough to get away from it. Revelark is nice. It dies, you get 2 creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard. That hits Duplicant, Solemn Simulacrum, Eternal Witness. I'm sure there's more. It hits Rift Sweeper, actually, and Rift Sweeper enters the battlefield. You take a face-up exile card and shuffle it into your library. This is really good to have, especially in EDH. It's really easy to recur with Sun Titan, Revelark, anything else. I'll animate this with Obsidat's Aid if I have to, because everyone loves to exile Avacyn, and Avacyn makes this deck ridiculous. If you can get a Tameo Emblem and a Child of Alara deck, it's game over. They can't stop you because you're going to blow everything up. Goes to the field, goes right back to your hand, you just cast it all again. And All Sun's Dawn is another good reason to have Rift Sweeper, because this exiles itself, but it lets you get a card of each color out of your graveyard back to your hand for just 5 mana. You can recover everything that you need to win the game most of the time. It's sort of like a graveyard conflux. This is another one of those Haymaker spells I was talking about. It says blows that if they don't answer it, they're really going to regret it. Like Nicky B, but we'll get to him. Now, being 5 colors, obviously being able to search through my deck a lot is nice. Digging up land is good. but I'm really light on creatures. They're all in here for very specific reasons, and they all answer specific threats. So I have things like Eladamri's Call to dig a creature out at instant speed, comes straight to my hand, and then Wargate and Tooth and Nail. Tooth and Nail, if you entwine this and you don't win, then you did something wrong. I'll usually grab Avacyn and Sigarda when I have asceticism on the board, and it takes a mass exile effect to handle my field. It doesn't matter what you get with it. If you don't entwine it, you can grab 2 creatures out. I've used it to grab a Solemn and an Ewit because I was light on mana, and used the Eternal Witness to get this back. The Solemn to get land, next turn hit another land drop, and was able to entwine it and win. Wargate is absolutely amazing because it's just permanent. You search your library for a permanent and put it on the field. And as you can see, it's not really aggressively costed. It's X plus Bant. So it's 3 mana plus the cost of whatever it is you're going to get. So it's 11 mana to get Avacyn directly onto the field from your library. It sounds like a lot until you remember that you're getting Avacyn directly to the field from your library. It gets Progenitus, it gets Nicol Bolas, it gets an expedition map or a land or something if you're really desperate and you have a way to recur it, but oddly enough I have ways to recur all sorts of things. Back to Haymakers, Conflux. It's another one of those things that if they don't stop it and it resolves, then they're on a clock. I've been in 6-player games where I resolved a Conflux and won 3 turns later because I'd set up a state that they couldn't stop. You get a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green card out of your library into your hand. It's 8 mana, so odds are good when you pull this off. You're not going to be doing anything else that turn, unless you have Mirari's Wake in play. With double mana, even then you're not going to be able to cast much of what you get, but if they can't kill you before you untap, then you're just going to kill them. The possible combinations of the things you could get with these 5 cards in a 5-color deck are almost limitless, even though I always get the same things, including Nicol Bolas, surprise, surprise. My favorite way to get rid of anything is to put it on the bottom of somebody's library. And Spell Crumple does that very effectively. This is my favorite answer for commanders that I can't stand to deal with, or just any kind of spell I really don't want to see. And because Spell Crumple also puts itself on the bottom, all the shuffling I'm doing, I'll see it again, I'll be able to use it again. It's more inevitability. Let's just bring us into the just value section. Let's pull him back again. Asceticism, like I said earlier, it goes well with Avacyn and Sigarda. Just having all your stuff have X-Proof is really nice, especially when one of the things on your board can blow up the entire board. You don't want that to happen unless you want it to happen. The top, it's an EDH deck, you gotta have a top. You can keep 1 land hands if you have a top in it, because you'll be able to smooth out your draws. The Greaves are great, for obvious reasons. Still an EDH deck. Now the Jitte, on the other hand, for whatever reason, some people don't understand how broken this card is. It literally does everything. You don't have to do damage to a player, you just have to do combat damage. And it gets the charge counters, which can gain you life, make the creature bigger, or kill things. It's so much utility for just 2 mana, and it's really easy to load it up with counters and just wreck face with it. Turn 5, dropping Child in, giving it a Jitte, and then Greaves, and just wrecking people is all sorts of fun. More inevitability. We're getting into the threats here. Dauntless Escort is just another sort of a backup Avacyn, I guess, early game. Sun Titan can bring it in, but you sack it and make all your stuff indestructible. It's useful, might actually cut it, to be honest. The fact that you can recur it is what's keeping it in the deck. It's too narrow, only saving the creatures, because it's everything else I usually want to keep, but depending on the board state, or if somebody faiths rewards or something, you know, this is nice to have. Kitchen Finks. I can't possibly say enough for Kitchen Finks. I've gained as much as 20 and 30 life off of a Kitchen Finks, just because I can keep bringing it back over and over and over again, and you get 2 life every time, and it persists on its own, and note, 3 mana, Sun Titan brings it back. Sigarda is another part of that inevitability board state. You can't force me to sacrifice anything, and she herself is hexproof. Play her next to Abyssin, and then they're immune to Wrath of God type effects. And you can set everything up to where they just can't touch your board. Mikaeus is in here just because it makes sense. I honestly can't remember the last time I resolved a Mikaeus, but giving everything I have Undying and being able to blow up the board, it just seems like it has to be a staple. And then Sun Titan obviously is a big core of the deck. Being able to bring back a permanent, it's the lack of specificity just makes them almost broken. Gets back fetch lands, gets back most of the artifacts, gets back a bunch of cheap utility creatures. It does everything, and it's really easy to make it impossible for them to kill him. Unless they exile him, but you can just drop in asceticism and it's not a problem. Now, one of the biggest problems with playing Child is everybody knows what the deck does, so they're not happy to see it, and they just come at you straight out of the gates. Yosei is one of those rattlesnake effects that really discourages that. Making somebody skip their untap step, even if they don't have anything left for you to tap down. I mean, you get to tap 5 things, but odds are good that they just have land and it's tapped anyway. But being able to make people skip their untaps is really nice. And then just reanimating him over and over again. I kept a friend of mine tapped down for 8 straight turns. He didn't untap until I made him promise that he'd leave me alone. It's political in a sense, but it's also really brutal. If someone's giving you trouble, you can just shut them off completely. Putting this guy on Gift of Immortality and having a high market out is absolutely ridiculous. And this brings us into the threats. Wormcoil Engine is great because it dies, you get 2 things. It's a little harder to bring back, but the key here is lifelink. Like I said earlier, you get hit a lot. You catch a lot of hate with Child. Enters the battlefield and leave the battlefield effects are really a premium in this deck because I'm reanimating, and having something that replaces itself when it dies is really nice because it's definitely going to die. You honestly think about it, you drop a Wormcoil Engine, it doesn't matter who your commander is, somebody's going to kill it eventually, but I know for a fact that I'm going to kill it, so it's nice to know that it's going to leave something behind. Konda's really nice because he's indestructible. Bushido 5 is really cool because he turns into an 8/8 when they block him, but he's Vigilance, which is nice because it means you can keep swinging. So he's sort of like repeated removal in a sense, but the fact that he's indestructible is what's keeping him in the deck, because at 7 mana, he's sort of overpriced, but I can blow the board up as much as I want and he doesn't go anywhere. I used to run World Slayer and this guy would just carry it across the table all day long, but that was sort of degenerate, I guess. Now, Progenitus is actually how I kill most people. Now, there is a Kessig Wolf run. Child of Alara already has Trample. Being able to pump her out makes it really easy to get the commander damage in. This is kind of the primary win condition, but I don't always hit it. Sometimes it's hard to get it out of the deck. I've got something like 8 or 9 ways to tutor up Progenitus, sometimes straight to the field. Protection from everything is just retarded. He can't be blocked, he can't be targeted, he can't be dealt damage. He blocks everything for days. I just wish I had a way to make him vigilant. But taking 10-point chunks out of people's life totals every turn, it ends a game pretty quick. It's sort of like the EDH Aetherling.
What time do you guys close tonight?
8 o'clock.
8. What time do you open tomorrow?
12.
Abyssin again, still probably the most important card in the deck. This is what gets exiled more than anything else. And it's why I have about 100 ways to bring it back when it is exiled. The record so far is I cast her 8 times in one game, and she outlasted every copy of Swords to Plowshares, Path to Exile, and Unmake that my friends could muster up. They used all their exile effects, and I still got her back in. Making everything indestructible, it takes away the symmetry. Child explodes, early game. I'm losing resources too. But if I have Abyssin in play, I can pop Child whenever I want, blow up everything except my stuff, and it's just ridiculous. Being able to keep your board state while you're stopping them from having any kind of board state, it's it's what makes this a tap-out control deck. Final haymakers. Nicol Bolas can finish a game. He can come down in the middle of a game and distract them from your life total. I'm firmly of the belief that any EDH deck that has access to these colors should run him. He's just amazing. I mean, destroying it +3 to blow up a non-creature permanent is insane on a Planeswalker. I mean, you can knock out utility lands, you can get people, lock them out of colors. I'm definitely not afraid to mess with somebody's mana base. A lot of my friends think it's in poor taste, but I don't care. If I can shut you down that way, that's how I'm going to do it. Gaining control of a creature permanently for just 2 loyalty, that never gets old. There's so much great stuff running around. And usually I can blow up the board next turn, drop in Bolas, and steal something to block for him, and then just start blowing stuff up, and they can't stop him. His ultimate also obviously is really nice. They take 7 damage, sack 7 things, and discard 7 things. Sacrifice 7 permanents is easily the best part, though, because if I'm blowing up the same person's land each time, I can ultimate Bolas on that person and just knock them out of the game entirely. And then usually I've got 1 or 2 loyalty left on him to start ticking him up again. But really, he's an 8-cast bog. Nicol Bolas hits the table, they stop paying attention to you, they start hitting Nicol Bolas because they don't want him to ultimate. So it's a good way to preserve your life total. Cruel Ultimatum. In case you didn't notice, I'm definitely a Grixis player at heart. This is my favorite finishing card. Sometimes it's a lot less dramatic in EDH with 40-point life totals and such, and when they have a million elf tokens in play and they've got a reliquary tower and they've been drawing cards for forever. But it's still something like 20 for 1. I mean, making them pitch 3 cards, depending on who I target, this can be absolutely devastating, or it could just be I pay 7 mana, draw 3 cards, and gain 5 life, but I'm perfectly happy to do just that. So it gets a creature card from my graveyard back to my hand, so, I mean, it helps me reanimate. But in the right situation, if you've got somebody on their back foot and they're struggling to recover, this can just absolutely end it for them. That doesn't come up as often in EDH, but there's still been plenty of times when I've been beating on somebody and not able to finish them off, and then I rip this off the top of the deck, and I'm just immediately happy because the game's over. That 10-point life spread, something a lot of them can't recover from, especially when Progenitus and Avacyn are knocking them down 18 a turn. And then the Homeward Path. Should have been in the value section, I suppose. I don't know how it ended up all the way at the back of the deck. But you tap it and each buddy gains control of every creature that they own. Works against Nicol Bolas, oddly enough, but my stuff gets stolen a lot. Avacyn is a prime target. If they can't exile her or counter her, they're going to steal her. It's just the way it works. Everybody wants to have the Avacyn, especially when there's a Child of Alara. And a lot of times I've just let it go. And you'd be surprised how often I'll have this in play and people will steal my stuff and not even pay attention to the fact that all I have to do is tap this and I get it back. I've had people swing my own Avacyn at me and then just tap the path to take my Avacyn and block their other creature. The fact that it's instant speed is what makes it really nice, because you don't have to do it right away. You wait until it's actually a problem that you don't have whatever creature it is that they stole, and you let them think that you're on your back foot, and then just turn it sideways and you're not. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Keyword is inevitability. You bring everything back. The only thing this deck really fears is serious focused graveyard hate. Rest in Peace is terrible. Leyline of the Void is terrible. Those are easy to take out, though. The worst case scenario for me is a Relic of Progenitus or a Tormod's Crypt or a well-timed Bojuka Bog, something along those lines. But even tonight, the tournament that I just won, I had probably some 30-40 cards in my yard. Core pieces of the deck gone, and was still able to win just based on the inevitability of things like Legacy Weapon and Progenitus. The deck is really resilient, it's really versatile, and unlike most really versatile decks, it doesn't get punished for being so versatile. It's good in general against pretty much everything, instead of being specifically strong in one area. I mean, and a lot of times a deck that's really good, it has a certain specialization, which I suppose the reanimation and everything kind of is, but normally something that generalizes instead of specializing. You know, it loses some sort of an advantage. This deck just doesn't seem to. It's easily my favorite deck of everything I've built. I love playing it, and my friends all hate it, so I know it's working. But that's Child of Alara. Hope you can understand the madness of it, and have fun trying to build one your own.
Okay.